Thank you for watching Truth and Justice with Vivian King. I'm excited because I have two friends in the guest room tonight who are going to talk about the judicial candidates for Harris County. We spend a lot of time with our national candidates, our presidential candidates, but we don't spend enough time on our local politics. And in Texas, it's kind of like you pull one lever for Republicans and everybody underneath the ballot, it comes in, sweeps in, or you do Democrat and everybody sweeps in. So tonight I have a Democrat, and of course this is a free speech show. I'd love for you to pull the Democratic lever, but it's up to you. I just want you to vote. And so tonight I have Kelli Johnson, who is a DA right now. She's been with the Harris County District Attorney's Office for over 18 years, and she's a chief prosecutor in one of the local courts, one of our 22 felony courts, and I'm excited about her being here. Thank you for coming.
Thanks, Vivian. I'm glad to be here with my friends.
Yes.
Not a bad way to be on a TV show.
I know it. And quickly, I'm going to go ahead and announce that Tiaiva Bell, who's a public defender, who started off with the beginning of our Harris County Public Defender's Office. She was a fantastic prosecutor, and now she's a fantastic defense lawyer with the Harris County Public Defender's Office. So here's Tiaiva Bell.
Hello.
Thank you, Tiaiva. So Kelli, tell us that question that everybody asks you. Why are you running for judge?
Well, thanks, Vivian. Well, first of all, before I get into that, I just want to thank you for having me on your show.
Sure.
This is a wonderful forum just to give us time to air our thoughts and to give the public a chance to do what's, I think, happening in the moment, which is kind of why I'm running. I've been a prosecutor for 18 years. I've been in the criminal justice system for 18 years. You and I have, duked it out quite a few times together in the courtroom. So I think it was just kind of a nice marriage into the next stage. I'm getting into my middle-aged years, and Judge Mendoza is the presiding judge of the 178th. And at the time, I had not decided to run for this particular court because there honestly were not any courts available for me to run. And I just don't think you run just to run. And being in that system and being in the courthouse, you really have a knowledge of who's on the bench. And so he called me in on a Monday morning, brought me in his chambers, and said, you know what, I think it's time for me to step down, and I really want you to run.
Wow.
And it was a huge compliment. I admire him greatly as a judge. He is very well respected in the courthouse, and I just thought, you know what, here's my chance.
Well, that is a very good endorsement. Actually, he was one of the first courts I was assigned to as a prosecutor, because as you know, he was a misdemeanor judge.
That's right.
The first time around. So I was in his court when I was in the DA's office. So I love him and admire him, and I do believe that he's well respected. So that's a great endorsement. I hope he campaigns for you.
I hope so too. Well, he can't really, since he's a sitting judge.
Right.
But hopefully, kind of behind the scenes.
Can he not? He can't even he can't even endorse you, can he?
No, he can't.
I forgot judges can't do that.
No, can't do that.
But other politicians can, so it's kind of weird, because if you're a state representative, you can endorse, because their names are on everybody's endorsements when you get them in the mails, those flyers. Mm-hmm. But the judges' names are never on there, and that's an education. Remember, we do this show to educate you about the system. Well, that's one of the educational points, that you cannot endorse if you're a judge.
That's right. And that's, obviously these are all new things for me to learn. When I have a friend that's running for a different position, but maybe on a different party, it's probably not a good thing if I go. So these are just little things you kind of learn to maneuver the waters, something new. But I'm excited about it.
I'm excited too. So Tiaiva, she just said something interesting, that we duke it out. So, I've duked it out with Kelli, and I'm sure you have too. So tell us about the adversarial process, because some of our clients say, you're acting too friendly with that DA. Explain why we can duke it out, but then be professional and friendly.
I think that we're on different sides, so my job is to look out for my client, and her job is to look out for whoever her victim is or whoever she happens to be representing. Sometimes it's just the officers on your drug type cases, just the law. We have two different sides. We're going to see it two different ways. I'm looking at the full person. You're looking at the set of circumstances that you're looking at. I think it comes down to you're polite, you're respectful, because that's the way your mama raised you.
Right.
And that's the way you handle yourself as a professional. I can be polite, I can be respectful, I can be courteous, but I'm still going to be very well read. I'm going to know my case. I'm going to know it inside out. And when I come for you in court, I'm going to be prepared to do so. And I would hope, in my days as a prosecutor, I felt comfort when I had somebody that was really on their case and somebody that really knew it. Because if you got a guilty verdict in that case, you rest assured because you knew you got it for the right reason. The other attorney didn't fall asleep at the wheel and they weren't underrepresented. They had somebody that went all the way in there and defended them. At the end of the day, justice required the verdict you got. So I'm going to give you that. And you will have to go through me to get to my client. Now, I can be nice and polite and respectful, but in trial, it all comes in, even the attitude.
Okay.
That's right.
How do you feel about that, Kelly? Just the way we have to be adversarial, but then professional. What do you think about that?
Well, I always tell people I think we're kind of a dysfunctional family in the criminal courthouse because you do have to be around each other every day. There are so many people that I respect on the other side because, like Tiavi said, they are on the other side. Right. And there are certain people that when they tell me something, I take it to the bank. And there are other people that tell me something, I got to check those facts on that. And that's just the way it is. But I do think that it's important. Justice is going to take you where justice leads you. And so when the other side, they're representing their client, a citizen accused, you've got to listen. You don't want to fight just to fight. When you're trying to work your way up to trial, you've got to keep an open ear because they may tell you something that you didn't know. In Texas, we don't have mutual discovery.
Right.
So if the defense attorney decides not to tell me anything, I may learn it at trial.
Right.
But I don't want to walk into a situation in trial and try an innocent person.
Right.
I want to go in believing that I'm trying a person, I've got the burden, and I'm going to take them down the road to a guilty, because that's the way I believe.
Right.
But if you close off a defense attorney and you're not cordial and not friendly, you're going to miss something really important.
Well, I'm glad you were taught the old school way because that is the truth. And I think as defense lawyers, we know which prosecutors we trust to tell our side because there are some prosecutors in the minority that if you tell them something, they go back and tell the officers or the victim, and then the story keeps changing. And so we try to know which prosecutors we can talk to, you're one we can talk to, and the ones we don't. And we talk about that, right?
Mm-hmm. They go on the list. I think I have a running list in my head, and there's some prosecutors, if I feel like you're straight up and at the end of the day you want to do the right thing, I feel comfortable. At the end, I don't want you sitting in a trial that we don't need to trial, and I don't want to put my client through a trial that we don't need to sit through. If we can sit and have a discussion and I feel like you're going to do the right thing because it's the right thing to do, we can have the discussion. But if you're one of those people, your win is more important than doing what's right, we will never have a discussion. I will smile. We will set it for trial. Can we talk? Not so much. I'll see you trial day. And that's just, some people have earned that reputation. And once you earn it, it's kind of hard to get away from it. But I do think there are a lot of prosecutors that genuinely just want to do the right thing. For the most part, they have way too many cases to be fooling around with cases that they really don't want to take a not guilty on. Right. So if you can sit down and you can have the conversation, then that's a good thing. It works for everybody. It works for the system. Nobody wants, as a defense lawyer, even if I have you on video somewhere else, I don't want you sitting through a trial. And the prosecutor, although it might be good to see some of those faces when you play the video, you don't take your client through that. And if the prosecutor is one of those you can talk to, you say that up front, out loud, and you save a lot of time and a lot of heartache from both sides. And I think that's the way the system works best, and that requires that you have a mutual respect and ability to talk to each other one-on-one.
Well, and Tiav, I was just going to say on that, and what a scary situation with serious consequences. Mm-hmm. To think about that if you've got a prosecutor or a defense that may not want to hear something, they're so regimented on what they believe to be the truth, but the truth is going to lead you over here, but you're blinded by whatever your own vision is. Those are the scariest kind of people to work with.
Exactly. And we know who they are. Let me tell you what's scary about reciprocal discovery. So let me explain, since it's an educational show, the reciprocal, right now in Texas, the prosecution or the state or the police officers have to give the defense anything they've discovered in the case to show that the client is guilty. Our duty as defense lawyers is to gather that information, go through it, do an independent investigation, and present it to our client so that the client can make the ultimate decision whether they want to plead guilty or plead not guilty and say, well, I didn't do that, or I did something, but it's not that. And so we have to try to, and what we do, a lot of what we do as defense lawyers is trying to make the punishment fit the crime and make sure that they're not being over-prosecuted, or if they didn't do it and they truly were just merely present, that we can try to support that. One of the things that's scary to me about reciprocal discovery is what a prosecutor is going to think is discoverable. Because let me tell you what our end is. Our clients might tell us something, but we don't know if that's true.
Right.
And so what would we give you? You know, I mean, he didn't do it because we don't know. And so I think one of the most interesting part of criminal trials and why we do a lot of what we do is because you learn it as you go along. When I used to do 100% court appointments as a defense lawyer, they used to laugh at me because I would tell, and I worked in the trial courts where they went to trial every week, like Don Strickland, Debbie Strickland, Belinda Hill. Like for the first 12 years out of the DA's office, I worked in the tough courts where they were in court every week, every Monday. And so sometimes I'd be so tired, and Charlie Brown and Sheriff Miller would tease me, and they'd say, well, what's the facts of the case? I'm like, I don't know, I'll learn on direct. I'll learn on direct because I don't even know. So, I mean, the thing is, your client can tell you something and the prosecution's facts have something, but sometimes the truth is somewhere in the middle, and we really don't find out the truth until we go to trial. But one thing I do in prepping my clients, and Tiava knows that because she's tried a really, really difficult case with me one time that we won, by the way. But anyway, it was a really difficult case. But I tell my clients, and she knows this, you better tell the truth. I don't care if it's the truth, but the truth comes out in trial. It's something about people still appreciating the system enough to say, when they swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God, most people will tell the truth. Or even if they start off not telling the truth, something about, the way they were raised, even if they're hoodlums, that truth starts coming out. It either comes out in like they try not to say something or they say it. And so these things are going to happen. So I tell my clients, I don't tell. And one of the things people say, oh, you're a great lawyer, you're a great lawyer. But one of the things people don't know is that I actually don't prep my clients. We go through the story because I don't want them to be prepared to just answer my questions. And then when they get crossed, they can't answer it. I just want them to, whatever the truth is, stick to it. And don't guess. That's basically what I tell them. I just don't guess about it because guessing is not what you've told me. I'm putting you on the stand because, and Tiava knows this is my barometer. If my client can convince me that they didn't do it, they're going on the stand. Because I don't care what their background is, I don't care how many times they've been to jail, if they can convince me, then I think they deserve to try to convince a jury. At least they know that they've had their day in court. And I don't tell them what to say. I don't woodshed them. I just go over the story. Like, tell me again what happened. Tell me again what happened. And they're going to ask you this, this, and this. What are you going to say? Is that what really happened? And so I just say, tell me the truth. Because the truth, if the prosecution's witnesses know more truth than we do, we're losing. Mm-hmm. And I'm going home. I don't want you to go. I want you to go home with me. So can we work out a deal now? Because I don't know what the truth is. I believe you, yes, but the truth is somewhere different sometimes. What do you think?
I think so. And one of my favorite phrases is, if you're telling the truth, you don't have to remember anything.
Right.
So you have the people up there that they're thinking about it. Well, if you're on trial for a felony,
something serious, then obviously you're going to be in that situation. You're going to know what to say. Right. Instead of a tangle web we weave as you're sitting there weaving the facts in with lies. And then, like you say, somebody's going to know more than you. And it's going to expose that. Right. It comes out in trial. I know as a prosecutor, you've been shocked about your witnesses, what they said or what you anticipate was going to be said.
No doubt.
And we've been shocked too. So, you get shocked on both sides. So you have a comment on that, Ms. Tiava?
Oh, no, you sitting there and you're just like, really? Really? That's the story we're going with today?
Yeah.
That just what came out of your mouth?
I know. Sometimes T.I. will say, Viv, what am I going to do with this? I'm like, just got to roll with it. You got to put your big girl panties on, and tonight, you just might have to take that ass whooping. I know you don't want to, but you're going to have to. T.I. doesn't like to lose. And see, I guess because I had all those trials back then, sometimes you just have to, just let them have their day in court, just get it over with. Because
I'm good at
some
shooting
people
a
are not
side
going
eye.
to listen, huh?
I said, I'm good at shooting aside. I like, if that's the story you're going to tell, and that's, you're going to prison for a long, long time. Nobody believes that, even me sitting right there, and I'm sure when it came out of your mouth, you didn't believe that either.
Right,
So,
right.
But sometimes they need that day in the court.
Yep,
they
sometimes
do.
people need that day
They
in
need
court.
to make sure the witnesses are going to show up, that really did happen.
Exactly.
They may have convinced themselves something else happened.
And
Validation.
you said a mouthful, because the most important one is they think witnesses are not going to show up, especially people who've been locked up a long time. If they've been locked up a year or two waiting for trial, they just believe that people are not going to show up. And what I tell my clients, inexperienced, well, I shouldn't even say inexperienced. Some lawyers who've been lawyers a long time but haven't tried many cases will go for that. But I always tell them, look, when I was a prosecutor, and I know it was a long time ago, the DA investigators were retired homicide detectives, so they can find anybody. So, and the worst feeling in the world is when the DA's investigators go and arrest the witnesses and have them in jail. I've had a woman testify in a full gown that they arrested and kept her in jail for 2 days in Don Strickland's court until she testified.
Oh, that's great.
Oh, no,
tragic.
in a burgundy dress. They found her out somewhere around the holidays, and they put her in jail. So you don't want a feeling like that. So don't say that they can't find people, because they will. Those bloodhounds that used to work in the DA's office, I'm sure they still work there. They can find anybody. It's interesting what you can do with computers these days.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's so different.
And Social Security numbers, and baby mamas on SSI, or children on this.
What are you posting every 5 minutes from Facebook and Twitter? I'm here at the convenience store, supposed to be in court, and they show up and pick you up.
Or they're checking in somewhere. That's always a great one.
Oh my God. So anyway, so you always ask me, how can we get along? We get along because we see each other every day. Anybody who sees somebody every day, you get along, but we understand our jobs and we take our jobs very seriously. So we know with your 18 years of being a lawyer that you're very qualified. I find it interesting that when you went to college and graduated, you worked in the White House. I mean, that's exciting. How was that experience?
It was amazing. It absolutely, I say it's 2 of the best years, some of the best experience I've ever had.
Wow.
Because it was one of those, I graduated from college and I had 2 roads I could have taken. I said, well, I'm going to apply at the White House. If I get in, I'm going to go.
Right.
But if I don't, then I'll do the law school route like I'm supposed to go, like I told my parents I was going to do. And I got in and I moved up there. I was going to be up there for 3 to 6 weeks. My parents, I'm the youngest kid. They knew that was not going to happen. So I moved up there. You make peanuts. I was there with the Clinton administration.
Yay.
Yay. And I had nothing but more respect by the time I left.
Wow. Tell me how that was meeting President Clinton.
Well, it was great. There are, of course, some jokes that come along the way because I was there from 94 to 96.
Monica Lewinsky.
So I may have met her.
You may have met her.
In the hallway at the very end when I was about to leave. But I started off in the Office of Presidential Inquiries.
Wow.
It was an internship, which is an office that coordinates local and regional media.
Wow.
It's a mouthful. And so I got to work with all these different newspapers across the country and sort of coordinate the articles that are coming from there. I would put together like a huge portfolio and then eventually be presented to the president to see what's taking place in local media. So from there...
Was that like a daily thing? He had to have it daily or
daily,
weekly?
Every day.
Wow. So you're just looking at all these newspaper articles and putting together this little portfolio so he could flip through it.
And another thing that was interesting about that office is it was the only public line that any citizen could call straight into the White House.
Wow.
So you can imagine some of the crazy calls that we got.
Oh, indeed.
And, people wanted, of course, their autographed picture of socks, or they wanted you to send an ambulance out to the middle of the boonies to help their grandmother who fell off a rocker.
Right.
So from there, I finally got to the travel office, and this was all right after some of the sort of drama that had happened in the White House. It was right after Travelgate and some of those other interesting, right before the photographer in the White House, you remember that, got in trouble. So I kind of sandwiched in between a couple of controversies.
Yeah.
But I got to travel all around the world, went to the Middle East Peace Accord.
Now that was in the travel office.
That was in the travel office.
So what was your job in the travel office?
So So what it is they have a group of people that coordinate all these little things for the president. And mine was coordinating the press advance. So they had a press plane, and sometimes I would fly on the press plane, and twice I got to fly on Air Force One.
Are you serious?
Whoa! Golly, you're a celebrity. I didn't know that.
Well, I will tell you that I got to know the good people in media and the really snooty people in media.
Wow.
The people that had 18 bags to go 2 days somewhere.
Oh, wow.
Or the people that refused to wait in line because they were, too important. So you really got to see how they would curve an event, like how they would restate something that is not at all what happened. I mean, you would just see the spin doctor beginning to happen.
Wow.
And that was back in the days of pagers.
Yes.
And I thought I was so cool because I got to wear this pager and the thing went up in my ear and everyone thought I was Secret Service.
All right.
24-year-old.
I know it. Oh, wow. That is exciting.
You could be anywhere in the world. This is in '94. And you could push 4 numbers on the phone and you could reach anyone in the White House.
Wow.
I was just
on a real
fascinated.
phone or
on
pager?
a real phone. Well, they set it up. The White House set it up. But I was so hungry for all that information. I just ate it up the entire time.
I bet that was just wonderful.
I tried never to take it for granted.
Did you work 12 hours a day, or did y'all have routine work hours?
You did. You would get there really early because you're so excited. You'd stay all day, or you're going on a trip, and then you would go meet your friends somewhere on Capitol Hill. And some of my best friends would be working for very conservative, like Eagle Forum think tank, or Strom Thurmond, who's also one of the conservative ones. And you could just sit there and argue and hash it out and laugh and get mad at each other and drink your beer and have fun.
Wow, that sounds like a great experience.
I loved it.
Wow. So you actually met Monica Lewinsky?
I did.
Interesting. Was she interesting?
Not really. It is not at all who I would have thought would have, had the blue dress.
And got on her knees? Presidential kneecaps? Knee pads? OMG.
And did you guys hear about Kent Starr recently being back in the news with Baylor?
No, what happened?
So that was kind of a blast from the past.
Kent Starr was the prosecutor, or he was prosecuting him, or he was defending him? I can't remember now.
Remember, Kent Starr was the one that wrote the Starr Report.
But he was like the special prosecutor. Special prosecutor, okay.
So then recently I'm watching the news and the whole Baylor scandal came out, and I went to TCU, so that's a rival, so I definitely listen. So they had, it was basically some sexual rape allegations that allegedly had been sort of pushed under the rug at the university. And Kent Starr was the president of Baylor at the time recently that all this was going down.
What?
Well, anyway, it's just kind of a little
interesting twist. Yeah. That's an interesting twist when he was prosecuting sexual conduct and now he's possibly in charge of an organization that's suppressing it.
It's like, I know.
Fate is a mother. Wow. Karma. So back to the election. So we've gotten to know you a little bit. So how exciting. So people need to know who they vote for. One of the things I'm very disappointed about in Houston, Harris County, as big as it is, with all of the nonprofits and, sector organizations, people don't know who they vote for. They don't know who their judges are. And we need to know. We need to know who we are voting for. And so this is our opportunity to get to know Kelli. I'm excited. So I talked about our voting system. What is your perception of our voting system? What educational tidbits can you impart on people?
I think the hardest part is, you nailed it on the head, 80% of our ballot is full of judicial candidates. People don't know who they're voting for. We don't even know who we're voting for, do we, ladies, when it comes to civil areas. Now, Tiava might, because her whole family's full of lawyers.
Right.
But, I'm not from here. I've gotten to know a lot of people being out on the campaign trail, and we've got a lot of qualified people running. But when people go to the polls, and like you said, they just want to pull one lever or the other, it's very unfortunate. Because you really do need to be educated. Your judicial electorate is so very important.
It is.
Your family member, your friend could come before someone and they better know what they're doing.
Exactly.
Because experience is everything.
Exactly.
That's what the road bumps in our system, that's what delays trials when judges don't know what they're doing.
Right.
And so going back to the voting process, I just wish we had a better forum to educate people.
I do too.
Or a screening process or something where people can go and just find information.
I know. One of the things I did when I ran is I actually had a little cue on my website. I don't know if many people read it, but I did at least put it out there who the judges were, how, like I actually put a little educational thing by the incumbents, like how long they'd been lawyers or judges or prosecutors, or I even put on there who was married to who. I just thought people ought to know. I mean, I just think if you were in a small town, you'd know.
Oh, that's
and
right.
so it's relevant. It might not matter, but it's just interesting information to know. So I think that we should do it. I just wish the local organizations did it. You should be. I mean, I know the League of Women Voters does it, and that's probably one of the bigger organizations that does it.
They really are. Theirs is very easy to access to,
Right.
which is great. And what they do is they don't filter what the candidates put in there.
Right.
They ask you to write whatever you want to. You can go on there and you could read through and say, I need to check this out.
Right.
To me, it's more open-ended for you to see what's out there.
Right.
But there are very good organizations that screen, the Association of Women Lawyers, Mexican American Bar Association, there's various African American organizations, different cultural groups that do it. It's a matter of seeking that out.
Right, and a lot of them, even though they do the great screening process for their members, they don't have it on their website that's accessible. See, a lot of people now, especially with young people who are trying to get involved in the voting process, they need to Google something. You know what I mean? They need to go to the League of Women Voters website and see all the candidates. They need to go to MABA or, NAACP or something, but they don't really have that on their websites. I think the League of Women Voters does.
They do.
Because even though those groups are screening, they're not putting the results of that screening out for people to see it. You know what I mean? League of Women Voters, they put it on their website, they send the literature around, they send regular emails, but I wish it was more accessible. What was frustrating to me is that people will say, well, I only vote for the people I know. Well, you're not going to vote for many people because you're not going to, I don't know the judges, and I've been in this business for 20-something years, ever since I've been a lawyer, and I only know the criminal judges. I mean, I know a few civil judges just because I knew them anyway before they became judges, but I don't know them. So, I mean, we can't fight that our system was set up in Texas to be a party election. We can't fight that. So you basically have to vote straight Democrat or straight Republican. That's the way it's set up. That's the way it's designed. We didn't design it that way. Vote one ticket. Now, if you know another person, I'm a Democrat. I'm going to vote straight ticket. But there are a lot of great Republicans that I know, and if I know them personally and I think they're good or better at the job, then I switch off and I vote for those people. But you got to vote one party because that's the way it's designed. Otherwise, if you just go in and vote for the president, you're going to screw up your local elections, your local candidates. You can't do that. You got to stick with one side. I'm telling you, our Democratic ticket is just, it's good. It's great. It's better than the Republican ticket. And I'm voting and I'm fighting hard for Clinton or whoever wins in the Democratic Party. And I respect the people who vote in the Republican Party. So I'm not biased in terms of the information that I'm trying to give you. I'm just biased personally.
I can see you voting straight party if you don't know any better, but I also think we have a responsibility for us that are in the criminal justice system to let people know, the ones that stay around. There are some, let's go on both sides. There are some Democratic judges, if they take the bench, it will be a disservice to everybody that goes before them.
Right.
I can say the same about some Republican judges on the bench.
Right.
And I guess maybe I'm one of those people, I'm going to put my Facebook post up and I'm going to carry at least 4 or 5 people with me when I go to the election, or I vote over there by Fiesta on the sunny side, so you can always pull some people to go in with you, especially if you go to the bank. But I think we need to do a better job of letting people know, because if we do a straight party one this time, I think we're going to lose some great judges. I think we'll lose some judges that are motivated by doing the right thing, that I can honestly say when I'm sitting there having a conversation with my client, look, we might not agree with her, might not agree with him, but at the end of the day, this person is going to listen and they're going to be motivated by doing the right thing. And we need more people like that. And some of the nuts that get on in these straight party sweeps, it infuriates me. I have someone rolling in my head right now, and if that person should happen to take the bench, I think that we just set the criminal justice system back just a little bit. And I wish we were better.
Totally respect your opinion, Tiava, and I felt the same way until I ran. But what you learn when you run is when you spend $60,000 out of your own pocket when you're poor and have no family like me, trying to get people to vote, and you know you can't reach the 4 million people in Harris County. No way, Jose, you just can't do it. And then the more you get, and I was an accountant, in my first life. So the more you get into it, you realize it was designed this way. You can't fight it. You can't fight. There's no way one person can get elected out of a party with a sweep unless they just have a fluke. I think like a Democratic lady came when a lot of them didn't win. Elaine Palmer, but she had like this rich guy backing her. I mean, you got to have about $1 million, and people don't donate to criminal judges.
And they don't.
Because criminal judges don't affect money. People will give a lot of money to civil candidates, but they want, and then your parties, the Democrat and Republican parties, are biased toward their civil candidates because they're the ones that make the money for the party, because you can't bring it in. And so I was like you until I ran and lost twice after working my butt off. I mean, I would be in trial all day. I'd go to every little Democratic thing every night. I was putting up signs everywhere, and people just want more and more. But the people who vote that are mostly Democratic, they don't give, but they just want you to. They want you to go to every civic center meeting, and you go there, and there's 5 people there. And the thing that's so crazy is you got to go, or else you get a bad mouth in the community. But those 5 people were going to vote anyway. And they were going to vote Democrat. But you still got to go. You go to all the black churches. Wonderful thing to do. But the ones that are there, vote anyway. But you got to go. And you can't, when you really need to be going to the places where people are undecided or they're indifferent or they're young to motivate them to vote. So the thing is, I've studied other structures. So in other states, governors might appoint the judges. And then there's just a retention election. Okay? There are states like that. And you go to other countries, like if you go to France, they still have, the term sire de face. What do you call it? What do you call it in law school?
Stare decisis.
Stare decisis in law school. That still lives right now today. In France, they have to take a test to become a judge, and they have to do it based on stare decisis to make sure that their law is consistent. Ours is not consistent because we have all these quacks on both sides, and they make the law up as they go, and since all their friends are the ones on the Court of Appeals, they just co-sign on what they said. And so we don't know what the law is really because we don't have stare decisis. We had it up until about the 80s. And it's been gone ever since about the 80s. When I was in law school and graduated in 92, the law built on the law. As we learned in law school from the Queen's Bench, the history of law is what you learn in law school. But and even your civil rights, 4th, 5th, and 6th Amendment, which affects us, it built. But now, you don't know what the law is on anything. It could be and it could not be. It's because people are not really following stare decisis because they're not educated. And once a judge rules, the standard of review is you have to go with the rational trier of fact. You got to go with and so you can't change it. And so that's what's scary. You go to other countries, it stays the same because you have people who've taken a test. If we had to take a test to run for judge here, you would have very few people running. Because after people get out of law school, they're not ready to take any more tests, right? So let me stop and see if we have a call. So I see we have a caller, so thank you for calling Truth and Justice with Vivian King. State your comment or question.
Yes, my question is for the candidate Kelli Johnson.
Yay.
My question is, if you were to experience unethical behavior in trial as a sitting judge, how would you handle that situation?
Ooh, that's hard.
Oh,
that's a good hard question.
That's a great one.
That's
Give me
a
an
good
example of unethical behavior.
By a trial advocate or somebody that's involved in the trial.
I think that's a great question because I don't know if you ladies have been, but I've been in trial where I've seen something crazy happen on the other side. And some judges don't know how to handle that because they're trying to be too nice and they just sort of freeze. And they let that lawyer start taking control of the trial.
Yeah.
And we have seen that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a great question. So as judge, what I would do is you first call the parties up to the bench. You remove the jury from the courtroom so they don't hear anything because you can imagine voices could be raised. So at that point, I would admonish that lawyer, don't do it again. Let them know specifically what they did that's unethical or not professional. then if he continues to do it, you can hold that lawyer in contempt. And it's frustrating because you also want to protect the right of the accused, or even protect the right of the government on the other side if the prosecutors are doing something. But you know, we had an example happen last year where, I'm not going to say any names, but where a judge made a decision that was not in public opinion, that held one side that they acted in bad faith. And it caused quite a bit of uproar around the courthouse. And I think that sometimes judges have to take a stand, and they may do something that's not popular, but if they believe that that's the law and they believe that it's right, then, you know, they got to make that decision. And sometimes that happens when you hold someone in contempt.
It does.
Or you have to file a ethical complaint with the state bar on a lawyer. And hopefully those are tough decisions, but hopefully you'll have a judge that can do that.
That was an excellent question. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have another caller holding on, so let's connect the other caller. Are they still there? They're gone? Okay. Well, call back, caller. I'm sorry it took so long. When you call back and I get the note that we have another call, I'll get you right on. That is good. And see, that's part of that stare decisis issue. You know, a lot of judges, like in the old days, up to like 1980, let's say. That's the old days. Up to 1980, if it was an unreasonable search and seizure, judges were not afraid to grant motions to suppress. When I was first a prosecutor in 92, the prosecutors lost half the motions to suppress, at least half, if not more than half. Now, they never lose them because we had judges that were half Democrat, half Republican, and people voted for these people. They voted them in. It didn't matter when. People voted for the person. Things changed. And now judges are afraid to grant a motion to suppress, which the judge is supposed to be the gatekeeper of the Constitution. But what people don't know is judges are afraid to grant a motion because they feel that it'll be written up on the front page of the paper the next day and be very unpopular. There's a call. I'll get back to that. There's a call. Thank you for calling, and please state your question or your comment.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes, ma'am. My name is Gregory Bell, and I work with youth at my church. We're starting a mentoring program, and what I'd like to ask is, what do you all as lawyers see going on with a lot of the youth? A lot of them seem to have that attitude that, you know, they're invincible. They get out here, they're doing a lot of bad things, they're getting in trouble. As you know, once you do a bad strike, we have a couple of bad strikes, then that's it. You know, you can't hold a lot of reputable jobs. So many of our youth, are falling into that trap, and they're doing some very bad things. Do y'all see it as a lack of parenting skills, educational? What do you all think? Because me personally, I think a lot of them are looking at the different things on TV. They're looking at how a lot of others are portrayed, and they want to follow in that. They want to follow in their footsteps, and they're just leading down the wrong path. And that one mistake or two mistakes, is really costing them.
You want to take that one, Kelly?
Sure. What we've seen the criminal justice system do over the years is it's morphing into a growing trend of rehabilitation, which I think is a good thing. In the justice system, I think you should show and expect accountability, but you should also have compassion. Heavy hitting from the court system, just like what you said, you can damage people's lives. You can damage that child's life. If a young person is offered a quick and easy felony conviction to get in and out of jail, then they've lost their job, they can't apply for future jobs, for apartments, they can't vote, and a lot of the life rights that they know nothing about yet because they haven't lived it yet, it's gone. So I like the trend that we're seeing in the court system, that we're giving them, we understand that it could be a mistake, that they may not have had the tools growing up. They're given sort of tools specifically toward that crime to help empower them into hopefully a better path. And so that's what we're seeing. They're being glorified by reality shows and making those trends acceptable, and some of the things that are making, let's just go rob a convenience store, that kind of thing. So I like the trend that we're seeing in the criminal justice system.
I'm going to get Tiava to answer also. Tiava, what do you think?
I think it's a community failure. If we used to be a village raising a child. If you did something wrong, then your mama knew about it because a neighbor told her, and we worked to make each other better. The reason we're glorifying TV is because that's what we have now. How many kids do you see playing out in the neighborhoods? How many do you see them on Facebook, Instagram? They can't put their phone down. We need to spend time with each other. We need to get back to a point where we have accountability, not just for the people that live in our house, but for our communities. If you're that guy in the neighborhood, then be more than just that guy to your family. And I understand that that takes more time, but it also makes the people that, hang out with your kids a little better. Take an interest in somebody that you don't know. Like, I am at the public defender's office, and I see some of the best of the best, and I see some of the worst of the worst. But the one thing that is always serves to put a smile on my face is when you see the person that made the difference. And sometimes with some of my cases, it's just hooking them up with somebody that cares enough to give a little of their time to make a difference. If we invest in our community the way we invest in calling 911, we wouldn't need to call 911 as much. When you tell your kids they matter, when you take them outside, when you actually sit down and have the conversation and don't leave your conversation to your TV.
Preach, girl.
We do better.
Gregory Bell, if you're still there, thank you for calling and thank you for making a difference. Just like T.I. was saying, and like Kelli is saying, it sounds like you're a community leader that's making a difference, and we appreciate that. Thank you for watching, and please make sure to vote.
Yes, ma'am, I sure will.
Take some people with you.
Take some people with you. Bye. So, any other comments y'all have to make? We have 15 minutes. Can you believe it's gone by that fast without commercials?
Well, the only thing I could say is I grew up in a small town, and everybody knew everything that was going on in your business. Your families were involved in other families. I was very involved in church. I think about if I wasn't in school, I was going to church, or I'm going to the country to ride horses with my family. And T.I. was exactly right. It is such a disjointed culture, I feel like, that we've morphed into. And people are sort of self-interested, and they're not reaching back and just pulling things in that's important.
Well, one of the things I hope, and I've been asking since I was on the campaign trail, well, first of all, I asked for pretrial bonds. I made a big deal out of that. I even paid in public records all of the judges for all the years they'd been there if they'd ever given PR bonds. The judge I ran against had never given one. And so they're doing better with that now. But also, one of the things I've been preaching about is our probation system is a 50-year-old system. It worked for the people who got in trouble 50 years ago in 1955. But it doesn't work for the people who are getting in trouble in 2016. It has to be a different probation system. The programs have to be different. They need to really be rehabilitated. The programs now say, go to an anti-shoplifting class, go to that. That's to remind the girl in the 60s and 70s who was raised in the country, who went to church, who knew right from wrong, but decided to do wrong. So you go take a little anti-shoplifting class. You go take a little refresher course on what's right and what's wrong. But if your mother was on crack and your grandma was on crack, you never had anybody to tell you the right thing. So our probation department needs to be more of a life skills training, because people haven't had that. There are clients of mine, when I did 100% court appointments, I'd go on Sundays to see them after church and take them my sermon notes from Windsor Village. I'd have guys cry and say, Ms. King, I'm sorry I keep getting in trouble for ag robbery. I don't know what to do. Thanks for coming on a Sunday. I know you're court appointed and you're not going to get paid for this. And I'd say, but I could be you. My mother died young. I live with different, aunts kind of in a foster system. I could be you. And so someone took time with me. I'm going to take time with you. And I had guys say, I robbed because I thought the only way I could make money was to feed my children, was to rob for McDonald's money. And that's not even food to me. That's a snack. And I said, well, what about buying a bag of beans, a bag of rice? I said, do you know that they cost $2? I said, and you can make beans taste a whole bunch of different ways. You can
milk.
Boil it. You can put ketchup on it one day. You can put some ground meat. And he had never had anybody say that. But our grandmothers did that. My grandmother was born in 1897. I mean, that's the way we ate in the summer. So, she had a bag of beans. And so, she just made it do different things. But some kids have never been taught how to stretch a dollar. They don't even know how to make meals. They think a meal is spending $20 at McDonald's, not knowing that you can take $20 and stretch that for a whole week. if you buy the right products.
Or revamping our probation system as it relates to
Because they
young
don't
offenders.
know. And so how can you have someone take an anti-shoplifting class that's never been to church, that doesn't know right from wrong? No one's ever told them. And all they've ever seen is, like Tiava said, TV. They've been, their values have come from TV. And you know, TV is everybody on steroids. You know, if they're a hoe, they're a super hoe. If they're a thief, they're a super thief. If they're a killer, they're a super killer. They don't kill one person, they kill everybody on the TV set. You know what I mean?
Right.
So they've been trained by those people, not by their families or their communities. You see what I'm saying? And so what you're asking people to do, they can't even fathom. A lot of people can't even go. They don't even have a token to ride the bus. You can say, well, it's on the bus route, but you don't understand. These people don't even have bus tokens. You understand what I'm saying? And so it's not appropriate for the people that probation is trying to rehabilitate. It's a chore. It's a chore. I mean, I've paid for many a GED. I've helped people find jobs. In fact, when I first started this show, people would call in and they'd actually give people jobs. Because see, in the 70s, when people got in trouble before computers, they could get jobs. They might have made a mistake and gone to prison for 5 or 10 years. They come out, and it's no such thing as computers, so it's not on background checks.
Well, you know, the fees associated with probation, that's just crippling.
It's
crippling.
unconstitutional. I mean, to pay for something that you don't have.
Well, and I'll tell you, I read something recently.
People steal to pay for fees.
Oh, I know, especially electronic leg monitoring and things that we do to try to.
$300 a month. And let me tell you what people think about the system, Kelly. They think that it's rigged and the judges are getting paid under the table for giving them those. That's what the black community and the poor community, and I say black because it could be Hispanic or white. If they're poor and they need a court-appointed lawyer, it's nowhere in hell they can pay $300 a month for a leg monitor. People don't have landlines anymore. You have to have a landline for that. So to even have a leg monitor, the day the judge orders it, they got to go out and get somebody who has credit, because you got to have credit to get a phone. You know what I mean? To even get a leg monitor. So they feel like those bonding companies are in cahoots with a judge. If you come 5 minutes late and a judge revokes your bond when everybody in your family is paying, $100 a piece to the bondsman per month, and now it goes up, the society believes that the judges are being paid by the bondsman. Because what does 5 minutes really matter? Now, I understand we have to have order. Don't get me wrong, but I'm just saying from a poor person's standpoint, why does that matter? You know, it's a much better system, and I was going to implement this if I won, but I guess it shouldn't be implemented. But if you ever do a federal case, are you familiar with how the federal system works? You know how it works, because I'm always talking about it. But if you get charged, you get your detention hearing that's proper, it's constitutionally based. They let you out basically, and unless you're a flight risk that they can prove, even if it's a $25,000 bond, you don't have to pay it, and you only go to court when it's time for trial. You go for pretrial conference and you go for trial. There's a lot of other dates on the scheduling order, but that's just between the lawyers. And if I decide to plead my client, I have to call the court and say, may I have a plea date? And otherwise, it's not there. So what is the point in people coming up there for a year?
Well, let me ask you this. I don't know if you guys have read recently, but for the first time in 3 years, we are now, because of overcrowding in the jails, shipping inmates to other counties. And where the county is now saddled with $180,000 a month, 75% of our jail population
is waiting for
are
trial.
Defendants waiting for
trial.
I
know. I ran on that.
Can't afford the bond.
I know.
But some of the bonds need is stupid.
They're too high.
If you have a PCS left in the ground case, and this is a first-time offender case, and the maximum they can get is a probation, there's no reason for that person to stay in custody.
If
at the end of the day they get found guilty,
that's what I'm trying to tell you.
That's stupid.
Listen to this. When I ran for judge, let me just say this. I paid for all 22 courts to find out from the day, from January 1995, when we became a one-party system, all the way to the day I ran and went before the Houston Chronicle, how many bonds had been given. I was running for the 185th at the time. And I went before the Houston Chronicle. And they asked, what are you going to do different? I said, I'd give pretrial bonds because 70% of the population is waiting trial. I'd lived it, so I already knew. And so remember, I was an accountant, so I had gotten those statistics. And they said, but what's wrong with the system? I said, like the person I'm running against, I like her. She's my friend. But she's never given a pretrial bond. I also got a few years before, and they were giving pretrial bonds. And so she said, well, yes, I did, but I had the statistics. She had never given one. So the bonds are being used as punishment. You know that. And you came in under a system where they did that, so it seems proper. But see, because I was lucky enough to come in '92, before it was like it wasn't like that. They were giving pretrial bonds. They weren't using bonds to make people put your neck on somebody to make them plead. They made sure that they had enough trials, and they went to trial, and the judges didn't just grant motions to suppress, and the lawyers, we didn't call as prosecutors appellate. We actually did our own research and got ready for trial the next day, and the judges, if you weren't ready, they'd call you to trial. You couldn't, it was no ex parte, and it was no, like, what's gonna happen tomorrow? It was none of that. It was like, everybody gotta be ready. They'd call you for trial. If you didn't have a witness, it was not guilty, I guess. I mean, it was where judges were gatekeepers. January '95, when we became a one-party system, a lot of people came in from the DA's office, a lot of females, they changed the whole system. It became like a club. It was no longer a gatekeeper situation. And it's just not right. It's not fair. And it's going to implode because we've done that. It's going
I
to
think
implode.
we're in the process of imploding.
It's
I think that
it's
it's
gonna implode.
absolutely stupid. Some offenses, I don't care if you're 25 to life. If you pick up a misdemeanor, possession of marijuana, I don't want to waste the jail space to house you. If you've done 25 before, you have no problem with doing the year that you're about to get in this county jail. When you need to
And
go,
it doesn't
you go.
make economic sense. You've let a lot of people who've gone straight from college to law school to prosecutors to now making the policy and not thinking of fairness. It's not good economic sense to pay, house somebody and spend $50,000 when it's marijuana. It's not economic. As an old accountant, it like infuriates me because I was an internal auditor that audited 70 banks for 9 years to make them more efficient. And so the lack of efficiency, so you have to know my background on that. So I was an internal auditor that went to all the Texas Commerce banks in Texas, including the Wall Street office. That's what I did. I made things more efficient. I made reports to boards of directors. That's all I did, from bank to bank, to make it work better with the system of the bank and the government policy, and the law. And so when I came to a system where there's no accountability, there's no board of directors, it's just people do what they want to do, it was shocking to me. Because when I left corporate America, where people were very sterile, tried to be fair, said politically correct things, and I go to the DA's office where they're more educated, and they were calling people poor white trash, they were saying all kind of crazy stuff, and then treating people in ways that they wouldn't want to be treated. And I guess that's the standard that I get upset about is, I'm not saying people shouldn't be punished, but let's try to have a speedy trial. That's what they do in Fed. I mean, they give them a trial date in 75 days.
And actually go to trial.
Don't
just continue to reset it.
Exactly. Go to trial. And I understand the system has to be changed, but we can do it one court at a time. I was going to be the voluntary court. And you just have to work like a dog, like Belinda did, like Vanessa Velasquez did, like Susan Brown does. I mean, if they're in trial every week, then the taxpayers are getting their money out of those judges. You know what I mean?
Oh, what do you think? You're a judge. You started off saying that the
We got 3 minutes, y'all.
Oh.
So ask her. No, ask her.
What kind of things would you change about the bonding that would allow for a reduced crowding in the jail?
Well, okay, right now, PR bonds are only used in 5% of all of our cases. And there's only 2 reasons. You ladies know this. 2 reasons that you have a bond: presence in court and danger to the community.
Exactly.
If you can show you've got ties to the community, especially if it's a low-risk, low-level crime.
Criminal trespass.
Yes. All the other counties in the state have 25. They give PR bonds in 25% of the cases, and we're 5%.
And we should barely be doing it in about 50%, because half the cases are state jail felonies.
That's right. And
half of the cases, our dockets are state jail. So all those guys, even if they're habituals, the thing is, and if you know the demographics, people in Houston might not be, I can say this for the black community. They ain't going nowhere. Most of them haven't been. If they live on the south side, they haven't been past Greenspoint. I'm just telling you. God forgive me for saying it. I'm just telling the truth. People might not be at their mother's house or the aunt's house, but they're not gone. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like, so I mean, they might have to get picked up on a traffic warrant. You know what I mean? They're not gone anywhere because they don't even have passports.
Right.
It's not like in federal court where, they have passports. So you have to surrender passports and then they let you out.
Hey, I'm a Southsider. I got a passport. Going places.
But I'm just saying it's being used as punishment, and it's going to take this federal lawsuit to get this MacArthur grant and the federal lawsuit. But why don't we do the right thing anyway? Why did we change it? Because like I said, some of us who's been around a long time, we've seen it both ways, and I think we're more indignant about it. Y'all came in under this system, so it seems okay.
I did.
It was not like this before.
Well, and you mentioned the MacArthur grant. That is hopefully going to slowly lower it. You know, it's going to lower it over a 3-year
It
process.
gives the county financial incentive to do it. The decision
Exactly.
makers that have
Right.
decided to use our county money, because really the judges are not using our county money well, but no one's telling them that. You know what I mean?
Well, it's 22 different kingdoms.
Yes, it is.
It really is. You could go in
and
one
the
court.
judiciary and the public doesn't know who you are.
Right.
So you get to do that.
And even on appointed lawyers, let me ask you this, because you're a very well-respected appointed lawyer,
Right.
and I personally, as a prosecutor, I'm going to have my ducks in a row more when I'm going up against an appointed lawyer because they've got all of the experience.
Right.
But as an appointed lawyer, you may go in one of the 22 kingdoms and you may only get a certain amount allocated to you for an expert.
Right.
So mounting your defense with your indigent client, you only get a certain amount, whereas you may go over here and you may get more.
Right.
To hire
That's
maybe a
not
better
fair.
expert or maybe a more respected expert. And it's just not fair.
It's not
And
fair
that's the
because now
key.
if you're the public defender's office, they get the great experts because they have a better budget. And that's where I agree with Rodney Ellis on, it needs to be taken away from the judges. It really does. It just needs to be like their office is. Somebody independent needs to do it. So just because then
completely
it would
agree.
save us money on a statewide level in terms of appeals.
And
There's
it also
a lot
saves
of money
money.
wasted on appeals.
And I don't want to feel like a defense lawyer is catering to me because
Right.
they want more appointments.
Right.
I truly
Why don't you
believe it
just
should be
stay
an
out of that?
independent
Right.
person
Just
to
stay
appoint
out
the
of it.
lawyer.
I agree.
Right.
But I think that as far as limiting any amount on, we don't really limit the state's experts. We don't.
We don't.
But at the end of the day, when we have better experts and we're in a position to actually challenge theories and say, this is the expert we're putting on, yours isn't so good, it makes us sit down, have a conversation, and actually
work
come
that
to
case
an
out.
outcome.
Exactly.
But when they have the power and you have the defendant and you're behind 8 ball, it's harder for your client, and your client suffers a disservice. I appreciate the office for saying, do you have an expert on that, and kind of pushing us in that direction.
Great. Hold that thought. Say the closing remarks. So, thank you for having Kelli on. I'm glad Kelli was on. Thank you for Tiava to making the conversation more interesting. And Kelli, thank you for running. I know it's a lot of work. I know it's hard with a full-time job trying to make the constituents happy. Thank you. Say something to close it up.
Well, thank you, Vivian, very much for having me on. I don't know how much time I have, but the biggest thing is be an educated voter. Look at your candidates, read about us, see who's got the most experience, and I hope in the end that you'll give me your support, but most importantly, just go vote and look at who you're voting for and take an active involvement in the process. Thank you so much for watching the show.
Thank you. Thank you. And watch the show Truth and Justice next week when we try to educate you about our criminal justice system. Good night. Thank you for tuning in again tonight. We have something really good, a hot topic in the news this week.